Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 127 of Speaking from the Heart. Today wraps up a month of awesome interviews that I've been doing, not only honoring people that have made positive contributions to starting my business, Your Speaking Voice LLC, but if it wasn't for them, Speaking from the Heart, my podcast that you're listening to right now, would have never existed. And I've saved the very best for last, because this last individual that we are putting on the show today is my best friend, Melody Taylor. And I'm really excited to not only showcase her, but this interview is something that has meant so much to me and what has exemplified as a full circle moment, which I even say during our interview. Melody was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A graduate of Cumberland Valley School District located in South Central Pennsylvania, Melody has held multiple administrative positions throughout her career. Presently, she's wrapping up supporting parents and their students that attend Commonwealth Charter Academy, better known as CCA, a K-12 public cyber charter school located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Melody has navigated a variety of different types of situations, which include, but are not limited to, the diagnosis of her brother as autistic, and lingering symptoms of a concussion suffered as a teenager. Throughout her life, Melody's beliefs about herself were always dictated by what others said and accommodating to their request. Her recent discovery of her latent abilities have evolved her to provide inspiration to others that seek to find out what they are capable of achieving by having actionable goals and a plan in place to stay accountable. Melody has raised 3 beautiful children named Lissy, Logan, and Liliana. And I have to say, there's nothing that gets more personal, more involved than anything that you might ever do, which is having your best friend on your own podcast. Now, I can't tell you how many people probably would ever do this, but I thought it was so important for me to not only showcase why Melody has made such a huge contribution to me, but at the very end, there are things that I say that make me feel like I have goosebumps running through me. But it just demonstrates to you the power of friendship and the value that it could bring no matter where you're at in life. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Melody Taylor. Melody, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
No problem. Thanks so much for finally having me on here, bestie.
Absolutely. And I have to say for my listeners, this is a moment for me in which I think I feel like I've came full circle, because I said to Melody, who I've known for many years, that I don't know where this podcast was going to take me. And I also didn't know where this would land, because I even said this to you. You might even remember a little bit of this, but I thought this was going to be like a 3-month experiment. I know I was doing it for some reason that I wanted to get my voice out there, but little did I know, and little did we both know, because you shared in some of the pre-discussion about some of the episodes that I was even doing, that I don't know if I was going to make it, but here I am, and I'm recording an episode with you. So thanks so much for doing this with me. And before I even say anything else for my listeners, I've known Melody. She has been somebody that has been the biggest support for me in not only everything that I've done with my business, but also with this project. So I have to tell you straight out, thank you for everything that you've done for me up to this point.
You're trying to make me cry already. But I just have to say, for the record, I believed in you from the get-go. I had no doubt, no question in my mind. This was your calling. This is where you belonged. And I am so happy to have seen you grow and blossom through all of this. It has been absolutely incredible.
Well, thanks for that. So, Melody, I've let the listeners know a little bit about your background, but I wanted to jump into the fact that you were born in Philadelphia. And I did not know this, and we went back and forth quite a bit about it, because I didn't even know, even after I'd known you for over a decade. So maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit about why Philadelphia and why you now live in Mechanicsburg, because I know there's been a lot of different movement in your life.
Yes, I would like to say West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days, but that's not true. My Family is all from Philadelphia. That is where I was born. My older two brothers were born there. My parents were. I actually was born at home on a Wednesday evening. My dad was a pastor and he had to miss prayer meeting, but my parents had no insurance, so I was born at home. And I think when I was 4, we moved to Michigan for a little over a year for my dad's job. And then that brought him back to the Mechanicsburg area. So I lived in Mechanicsburg, Camp Hill. When I got married, I lived in Sharmanstown. And then I also moved to Illinois for 6 years and 4 months. Then moved back and I was in New Cumberland. I've been all over the place here, a lot of moves and staying with my parents in between every single one of them. They just keep bringing me back as a boomerang child.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And I have to say that I lived with my parents up until my mid 20s at most because I was trying to get a stable footing and a job and all of that. So I feel like that's sort of been what our generation has gone through, trying to figure out where that level of stability is. So I can completely understand that. With moving back and forth, I mean, I know I've had guests on the show that have talked about those sort of experiences and trying to feel like they have a sense of belonging. Did you ever have time to like settle into any of these places and feel like you were at home, or how was that dynamic?
Honestly, I have always felt like I've been at home close to my parents and close to my family. I moved to Illinois when I was only married for, I believe, about 8 months. And that was miserable for me. I was more depressed than I had ever been in my entire life. I cried every day. It was awful. And I felt so secluded from my family. And my husband at the time, when he lost his job there on Valentine's Day, ironically, that was the best thing to ever happen because it brought me back to my parents. And even though I feel like I've been moving around there in a house and renting a house and then buying a house and then moving back in with my parents and building a house and moving back in with my parents and all of this, just being close to my parents has felt the most at home. And I have 3 children, so it is very important for me to have that support from them. That really is the only family that I have, other than my brother and sister-in-law that also live with my parents. But that's the only family I have, and that is where I feel the most connected.
I feel that for me, I missed out on a big part of my life with not being able to stay really much in touch with my parents because they live in Ole. For my listeners, Ole is in Berks County in Pennsylvania. It's about 100-mile distance between, which is translates roughly to an hour and a half, hour 45. So I feel like I lost a lot of that connection and trying to stay in touch. So it is really comforting to kind of hear from you, being able to reconnect and being able to provide that sort of not only support system, but you know that they're always there for you too.
When I came back to the area, I was still in contact with one of my best friends from high school, and that's how I met you at game night. And that was one of the first things that I did when I came back. He invited me to go to game night so I could reconnect with people that I knew before, meet new people. And that's where I finally felt like, okay, I can settle here because in Illinois, I never felt settled. I never felt like I belonged. It was an awful experience, but I brought it upon myself as well, just because I did not like it. I didn't feel comfortable. Just coming back here to my roots has been really life changing for me. And some days I still do regret ever leaving, but I know I did learn a lot of lessons on that. And a big lesson is I never want to leave my parents ever again.
Well, I think that many parents were probably cringing at that last sentence because they're like, no, I don't want to come back. But sometimes that doesn't work out the way it does for a variety of reasons. But you said something about finding yourself and feeling like you are living that life with being able to get back on stable footing and all those things. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what are some of the things that have changed for you as a result of not only maybe moving back in, but maybe what has allowed you to discover about yourself that you didn't see before?
Well, I did go through a lot, and this is something that I still deal with now. I actually have traumatic brain injury from I had a concussion when I was in 11th grade where I was out of school for half of the year. and I wasn't able to go back full time in my senior year. And then I had a car crash a few years ago where my car was totaled. Somebody ran a red light, and I had a concussion from that. Honestly, I don't think that people expected me to be able to walk out of that car alive the way that things looked, but that car protected me. And all of that and numerous other things that have gone on in my life, simple things like I had a running accident when my youngest was a newborn. And my parents were always there supporting me and helping me stay on my feet. And they they have just been amazing. And so many times I have had to come back to them. And that honestly is where a lot of the support has been. Also, getting into Toastmasters, thanks to you, has
Oh,
definitely helped
yes.
me. Has definitely helped me. I know I need to do more with that, but I feel like I've really struggled to have a voice and to speak up for myself. And with the traumatic brain injury, and my memory is sometimes really awful. I have episodes of really big regression, and it does come around stress, and there's a lot of stress in my life right now. But I feel like Toastmasters has also helped me to gain some footing in there, and also just to make me feel human and real, and knowing that I'm not among a bunch of people that are all perfect and speaking perfectly and have this great mannerisms of every sort. I just feel like I've been able to learn from them how to be human and how to put my story together and encourage others and just being real with other people. That is a huge thing for me. I'm very adamant about being real, not sugarcoating, not making everybody think my life is perfect. It's not. It sucks. A lot of stuff sucks, but I feel like that helps to connect with people and for people to feel comfortable connecting with me when they see that I'm going through things and I'm very open about it.
For those that are new to my show and don't know what Toastmasters is, we spent a lot of time in the beginning talking about what that has meant. We had a lot of guests on the show relating to that. And if you're ever interested in checking out a local Toastmasters club, whether it's virtually or in person, I'll put a link in the episode notes so you can go and check that out. Because not only, Melody, do I agree with you, because I know I introduced you to it and you were kicking and screaming about it, but at the same time, you embraced it after a while because you saw what those unintended benefits are. I think that it helps to foster that community of people and helps us to learn in an environment that is safe and positive in nature, which is what Toastmaster really provides. But the thing about providing that safe atmosphere, that positivity, I feel like there's a connection there between your parents and even the people that you have met through that organization and even friends that you have outside of me, because I know that we've been friends for a long time. Is there somebody that you really want to give a shout out to or maybe acknowledge as somebody that's been really a big help for you over the last several years that maybe has made a positive contribution into creating that best version of who you are?
I absolutely have to give a shout out to my best friend, Sarah. I call her Unicorn Sarah. We have matching tattoos. We have a lot of similarities in life, and it is somebody that I'm able to just be real with, and she can be real with me, and our lives are messy, and we go through periods of time without talking. But if either of us have something going on that we just need to bounce off the other or just vent or just say, hey, this is really, really hard, we're always there for each other. And if something big is going on that we just need another adult in our presence, I'll go over to her, she'll come over to me, we'll meet at a coffee shop or whatever. And she has been so instrumental in helping me just to feel more normal and to feel connected and just having that camaraderie. Obviously, you're my bestie. You're my bestie.
And yes, folks, we do call each other besties every time that we see each other. So it's definitely never a dull moment between her and I. And
No.
I have to ask this because with you mentioning Sarah, which obviously I've known Sarah for a few years now myself because of that mutual connection. You've said something that strikes me about meeting people with wherever they got going on, whether you have something that goes really bad or something that's really good. Do you feel that the bad moments, because you were talking about depression, anxiety earlier, which I know that our stories are intertwined when it comes to that. I've had John Shuckman on the show, and we talked
Yep.
about that experience that night, about what had happened. And we were talking about you and how you reached out to make sure everything was fine about my situation itself. Do you think it's really important to have those people, whether it's just a few dozen or maybe even just one, to reach out to feel like you are okay and things are going to be better? I mean, do you think that it's really important? And if so, why do you think that?
Definitely. And this is something that we tell each other. We often find ourselves apologizing to the other. We say, we know that you have a lot going on, but I just need to vent about something. But we are just always there for each other in those moments. And we make sure to tell each other that even if I have a lot going on, if you need me, even if I can't respond right away, send me a voice message. We've both had issues where we have just literally wanted to run away or having horrible thoughts. And we make sure that we are able to open up to each other about things like that, just to have this feeling of safety of like, okay, somebody knows what I'm going through. They understand, they acknowledge. And I feel like that's just been really helpful just to know when I do have a lot, when I have things going on, and I have a lot going on with my children, with a whole lot of things, that she's always somebody that will listen, and she'll be like, yeah, you don't have to apologize because I know I have a lot going on, but so do you. And we have a lot of similarities in our lives. Our lives intertwine in some of the strangest ways, but it just helps us to be able to understand each other even more.
I think that mutual connection with what you said, how that all strings together, is sometimes the weird ways in which life works. And even so, sometimes dealing with that and how we handle it and process it are completely big things. And you even mentioned that with even the things that you've suffered as concussions throughout your life. I want to pivot a little bit because this is actually a fascinating part about your life that not many people really understand or know much about, which is not only the fact that you have three kids, but those three kids actually go to Commonwealth Charter Academy, CCA. And for my listeners that are not part of Pennsylvania, that is well, not really a company. I should really call it a school in itself. It is that allows for in-home instruction. So being able to virtually attend school. So there's no physical building. They do meet occasionally with different places as field trips and even activities that they collaborate on, but all the instruction is done virtually. So how is it like to be able to have your kids enrolled in public cyber charter school? Because I know that I've had a few guests on the show that have talked about this, being able to virtually instruct, but nobody quite like you that has been able to really embrace it. And I know you've been a big advocate for it. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about those experiences raising three kids through that.
Absolutely. Now, I have been doing CCA. This is my 8th year. I have a first grader and a fourth grader and a seventh grader, and we have done CCA since kindergarten for all of them. Just this year, I was a family mentor for CCA, which means basically I was helping new families that were just recently enrolled to navigate through their first year and offer them support and just helping them to know that they're not alone. And this is something that I have been so passionate about for years because it has worked tremendously for our family. It has really taught independence, especially for my oldest, my 13-year-old. She has been doing school on her own without hardly any help for a few years now. Especially, it is important for my fourth grader. My fourth grader, Logan, he has ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorder, emotional disturbance, among other things. And my younger brother was diagnosed with autism in his 30s, and he had a very bad experience in the public school system and a very big advocate of me having my kids in CCA. And I'm getting so much support for him. Things are not easy at all. There are some days that I am in tears. I literally want to run away, but I just keep thinking of the alternative. And because he has a lot of behavior issues, he would more than likely be kicked out of a public school. Most other places that we go, he acts up and he has been kicked out of other places. So I feel like it is so important to be able to have him home with me. I am monitoring him. When he does act up, I'm seeing it, and I'm not just getting a phone call or a report later saying, oh, he did this, or I'm not wondering what did the teacher do to him if he did start to get violent, and I don't have to worry about his safety because I am right there and I see it. And it has been a struggle, obviously, because obviously if I would just send my kids to school, I would have so much more free time during the day. But I wouldn't trade it because I feel like they are getting an excellent education. I am in the forefront of it. I am in communication with the teachers. I am seeing them every day. We are attending field trips. We have some friends that we've made through CCA that we do extra things with that aren't even with CCA. And it's just been an awesome community to be a part of. And now also being a contracted worker and helping other families has just been awesome. But I can't imagine doing anything else. And I am hoping, it is my goal that all of my kids stay with CCA until graduation because it's just working so well for us. And like I said, being a mentor, I get to hear stories from other parents. And that is what I love, when I can relate with them and they can tell me the experience that they might have had in a public school or a child with autism that wasn't supported fully, and just seeing how happy they are with the experience here and just being able to give some personal tidbits of information and just talk about, yes, we've been through the IEP process. We've been through all of the testing, and it just really helps to connect with some of my parents, some of my families, just see how this is an excellent, excellent way of education. I always say it doesn't work for everybody. There are some kids that do belong in the classroom, and that is how they thrive, and they're just perfectly fine. My kids have never had an issue of wanting to even try public school because they realize, hey, I could sleep in a little, I could be in my pajamas, we can go for a walk between classes. When the pool is open, we could just go to the pool after classes are done. So it's been awesome for us.
You mentioned something earlier about your son and about the situation that he's going through. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you do to help cope with that? Because I know that there are probably parents out there listening to this that are just at wit's end in terms of trying to figure out how to self-contain that. Because you and I have even talked about this. I had a late stage diagnosis myself of autism, and it was never supported whatsoever. So you and I have had a lot of conversations. You and your brother essentially have helped a lot with probably figuring out some of the things that I didn't even realize about it. But I'm wondering if you have some helpful advice for anybody out there that is struggling with something similar as to what you've been experiencing.
Seeking help and being open about things, just like I said earlier, how I love to be open and it helps to open up the conversation with others. I have had so many people reach out to me, say, hey, my child deals with the same thing. And then just being able to support each other, being part of neurodivergent groups on Facebook, that has been really helpful. And even just trying to get the right kind of help. Now, getting help for a child like this is not easy with the system, and it takes a lot of patience and it takes a lot of persistence to get the help that you need for your child, but don't give up. And also just stopping and thinking and knowing their brain style is different. They're not going to act and behave the same way that a neurotypical child will. And that's something that I have to remind myself of often, that sometimes he's not trying to do this. He doesn't want to act out like this, but this is how his brain is working. And I need to just try whatever tactics. And one tactic that I use with him a lot that does help is I hold on to him gently and we talk about things that we can change, things that we cannot change, and what we can do about it. And then we discuss that, and then we talk about doing a 180 where we will physically turn around, not in a full circle, but doing a 180. And that is a way of demonstrating, okay, I have thought about what is going on. I know that I can't change what I'm upset about, but this is what I can change and affect. And now I'm turning around and I'm going to just act completely different. And so that's what he uses now when we talk about when he's having an episode of a fit. I would say, what do you think you need to do? He knows he needs to make a 180. And so that's what we do.
Can't tell you how many times you and I have talked about making 180s. We didn't really talk about it in that concept, but it's the truth. We have had to make some 180 adjustments in both our lives to kind of get to where we're at now. And the work is never done either. I think you and I have even had those conversations about how we can work through goals and how we can figure out how to be accountable for those goals. And you're teaching that to your kids, which is admirable, because a lot of things that we go through in life, sometimes we don't have that role model. One of my guests have even mentioned about the impact of being able to have that support system all the time. So you mentioned something, though, that really is not only an important aspect of why we go through not only having kids in school, but also why virtual works for you. I'm interested by the fact that you want to help other parents that are exploring this option. How has that been, being able to work with parents that have millions of questions because they didn't grow up in that? I mean, the concept of a virtual cyber school did not exist not all that long ago. And even for people that grew up in the school system, this is a completely different sort of aspect that when they have kids, this is a whole new adventure. So, what are some common things that you've been asked as somebody exploring that?
Okay. A lot of people think that it is antisocial, that it is like being a homeschooler that doesn't get out and they just stay at home. And that is just not the case. It is what you make it. And that is why I'm so passionate about it, because at least with this cyber school, there are a lot of options to interact with others. Even in the classroom, the teachers will, in the Zoom room, do a little breakout room for the students or the learners to talk with each other, talk about their weekend, and they develop friendships that way. That is definitely one of the biggest things that I have some families coming into CCA saying, I don't know about this because my kid is really social. And I say, yeah, mine is too. And we have just been able to work with it where we're at field trips, we're meeting up with people. They're able to talk with their teachers more than I feel like they would one-on-one in a public school as well. Like my son, who needs a little bit of extra assistance, he can very quickly send a chat message to his teacher and say, hey, can you help me? They'll open up a Zoom room and they'll help him, which is another awesome thing. So I think that some parents don't really understand that it really is what you make it. It is not antisocial. It is not just a homebody. And this school offers so many field trips throughout the year, all over the place. Last year, I took my 3 kiddos to Pittsburgh twice because there was a field trip there. There was a teacher we wanted to meet. I just booked a hotel and we made a whole few days out of it. And that was awesome. The second time, we actually went with another CCA family and we were able to connect with them there. And it was awesome. So that's something that I like to let the new parents know, that there are definitely ways. You just have to get yourself involved a little bit. But once the children connect and become friends, you become friends with the parents, you're connecting, you're seeing each other at field trips, and you're making those connections. And it might not be exactly the same as sitting in a classroom all day, but it is out in real life. And that's what my kids love to do, is just be part of different things and different kind of experiences that are part of the school day, and instead of sitting in a classroom all day.
You've mentioned a lot in the last several minutes about what your kids have been through in terms of being part of the CCA experience. You've mentioned even earlier about your experiences just moving around and really kind of feel like you're that boomerang kid and having to adapt and to adjust to all these moving expectations, dealing with the concussion, dealing with all kinds of other life events. My final question is really this: what keeps you going? What makes you strong to keep persevering? Because I know for people, like just being able to deal with the daily and even raising 3 kids, which in itself is amazing. I've always said this to you. I don't know how you do it sometimes, even myself, because like I would freak out over 1 kid. And you know that I don't have any kids, but at the same time, I'm dealing with a lot of those things that I'm working through to become the best version of even myself, as even as I build being a coach. But what inspires you to keep going, Melody?
Honestly, what keeps me going is I have a boyfriend now that I have known since 8th grade and just recently reconnected with him over a 20-year high school reunion. And some days that's what keeps me going is having somebody to support me in my life like that I haven't been supported in the same way before, and somebody who has a lot of similarities in life to me. And just knowing that I do have somebody who genuinely cares and I can bounce things off of. And I find it odd, but that really does help me sometimes get through each day, is just knowing that I have somebody like that. And I didn't for a very, very, very long time. And so it's interesting for my youngest daughter to say, Mom, he makes you too happy. And so, okay, well, good. I'm glad. That's a really good thing. But that just adding him into my support system is kind of what keeps me going. And knowing that I can't give up for my kids, even though some days I really honestly want to. And I have really down days where I just cry and I just want to escape. I cry a lot. Josh can tell you this. I have purchased extra tissues for his office because I cry so much. But just knowing that I have people depending on me too, and I have to keep going for them, and I have to see my kids through, especially to success, rather than just completely giving up on them.
We all have that motivation in our life. And I think even you and I have talked about this off and on for 12 years, where I feel like sometimes it's about not only figuring out what it means to have that purpose, which I often say to various people that come through my business, but it's also about figuring out what keeps us going. And one thing that I have to point out for our listeners, because I know that they can't see this, it's all audio, is that you have the tattoo on your arm of continue. I think that you continue no matter what those obstacles are, which many people would have given up. Maybe, like you said, they would have just thrown in the towel. You haven't. You keep figuring the things out and you keep on making those things happen. But I have to say, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to continue. I would have never been a success with what I've continued to build. And although I know personally, and you know this too, that I have so much more work yet to do, what makes this really impactful for me is that if it wasn't for you, there would be no Speaking from the Heart. There would be no Your Speaking Voice. There would be no Josh Smith, literally. And I don't know what that means in the future with what I got on my heart and on my cards. But I will say to you, Melody, that if it wasn't for you, I would not be half the person that I am today. I really mean that, because you were there when the darkest times were happening. And even after that, how many times there have been some dark moments for me too. And I think that if it wasn't for your courage and you carrying that, despite just talking it through, I would not be a perfect person, which I'm not. And I think that it makes me perfect in the sense that it makes me feel like I can work on things in my life that now I have some of those tools that I didn't have before. And that is a sense of working towards that sort of perfection, knowing that I'm not going to be perfect, but know that I'm able to work on it. You're doing the work, you're making it happen. And for all those reasons, Melody, thanks for being on Speaking from the Heart. It was really not just an honor and a privilege, as I always tell my guests, but this interview is a little bit different for me in that personally, you are one of those people that are the reason why this even exists in the first place. So thank you for your always supporting me and making me feel like I'm part of this experience and what's called life.
And right back at you. Honestly, I know I wasn't supposed to brag on you this whole time, but you have been that one for me. And that's why I just feel like I have to reciprocate it to you. There's been times when I have been in a horrible, horrible space and I just FaceTime you bawling, and you're able to help me to breathe through things until I can speak, and you're not judging me. And I just want to thank you because you have been so instrumental in my life. And you are one of those people I know that I can always count on no matter what you're going through. And I always want to be there for you no matter what it takes. If I am coming to your work to sit next to you on the step outside while you cry, that's what I want to do.
And that has happened, folks. Yes.
If I have to come into your office after you have a flood, I will do that.
And that also has happened, folks. And that's a whole other story in itself.
Yes. But I feel like it's something that I just owe you because you have helped me in so many ways over the years. And I wouldn't be where I'm at now if it wasn't for you.
You never owed me anything, nor do you owe anybody else except yourself the awesome gifts that you have, and to keep embracing that and just finding who you are, and you're doing that. And I really do appreciate that, Melody. So again, thanks for being part of the show.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know what to say. This is one of the first times that I wrapped up an interview and I feel completely speechless. It is almost a feeling as if I've come full circle, not only in everything that I've been doing to get to this point in my career, not only on this earth, but to know that there are people like Melody that have been there every step of the way, but yet at the same time didn't even realize what they provide to others. That makes such a big difference. And it's funny because even after this recording of this interview, Melody has gone through so many different things in her life that I hope that when she listens to this, even as she continues to listen to this for years to come, she is reminded of the fact that her unbelievable power that she has, just as much as the power that you have, my listeners, in being able to take a story just like hers and transform it into such unlimited potential, should demonstrate to you the ability for you to be able to create not only the best versions of yourself, but ultimately accomplish anything that you could do through the power of friendship. Because let's face it, Melody and I would have never been able to meet in the circumstances that we had if it wasn't for the fact that many, many years ago, I even challenged the status quo by moving out, and was one of the best decisions I have ever made in order for me to grow, but to also evolve. But also at the same time, knowing that some things happen for a reason, this predetermined meeting of Melody and I turned into something that I would have never thought would support even my business, let alone this very show for that matter. Because let's face it, moving around with various types of individuals and having all kinds of different types of support system might not be feeling very good, especially with all the things that you might have going on in your life. People sometimes make you feel crappy, and other people sometimes make you feel happy. But yet, when you go through all these various obstacles that you might have in your life, and maybe they are dealt with all kinds of people that you have to work with, whether they are teachers or administrators, or maybe even somebody else, you have to realize that there are different ways in which we can overcome the obstacles that we have in our lives. We have to be able to find niches, or even places for that matter, that we can find our voice. But do you struggle to have a voice? Do you regress on having a voice because you're afraid of what that outcome might be? It can make such a big difference in terms of what is going on in our lives, not only to raise our children, not only to go through adulthood, maybe even take care of our elder parents. But the next time that you meet someone in a coffee shop to have an experience that you never thought you would ever have, are you going to have that conversation move you forward or move you back? I think that the people that you even sit down for coffee with can have such a profound effect on the ways in which you support yourself. How you raise others dictates how you will be treated too. Even your own children, even the people that you associate with. So what can you do? How you can provide support in these different areas is truly an important aspect. But let's face it, with all the people that we've had on this show this month, which include John Shuckman, Michael Dugan, and Brittany and Corey Hart, all have said things that are all tied together. Even this very interview with Melody today. It's relationships. And it's the relationships that help us to learn and grow and connect that makes such a big difference, especially when we need that extra support the most. But there's something that Melody's journey really provided for me when our journeys collided together. And it is the topic of neurodivergence. Now, I have to be real with you, is that Melody actually connected me with some of my other previous guests that I've had on this show already, which include Leanne Firestone and Aaron McNamara. If it wasn't for these individuals, I wouldn't even have had them as guests. Even having the conversations that I had in both of those interviews allowed me to figure out why I really like working with Melody as a best friend. Because let's face it, neurodivergence, what I struggle with the most, has provided me with so many different types of opportunities, but it's also provided me with a lot of pain. But I turn that pain into purpose. While some people, not necessarily naming names or even picking on people, don't know how to best move forward from that. You need to have patience and persistence, which is why I love that Melody talks about her children, especially those that need that extra assistance. I have learned to respect a lot better why those differences are so valuable, because I did not know what that meant to actually be neurodivergent until it happened to me a little over a year ago now. But what are the physical hints? What is it that you're trying to do that will help you to keep moving that relationship forward, especially when you need those people the most to help lean on you, to help push you forward? That's what friends are for. And Melody did all of those things for me. If she wasn't there for me in the very beginning, I would have closed up this business in a heartbeat. Because I thought that maybe I was doing the right thing, but there have been many different times in which I've sat and cried and cried and cried, wondering why I made the choices that I did. But Melody reminds me of the importance of it is what you make it. I could have made my life full of all kinds of different opportunities. But at the same time, if I remained antisocial, especially if I never tried to make inwards into why I was feeling the way I was, I would be half the person that I am today. And it's because of friendships that have made such a big difference. You can explore. You can have opportunities that work alongside of you. You can make this happen for yourself too. But the main important point of this is, and the question that we're really aiming at answering today, is how and who has helped you to support those similarities so that you don't give up, so that you keep pushing forward, so that you know that you always will have a best friend that will help you no matter what happens. It's very hard to record this last portion of this amazing month for a lot of different reasons. Melody has meant so much to me in ways in which you, my listeners, will never understand. And sure, some people will speculate that maybe I have some sort of relationship with her outside of just being a best friend. But that isn't what this is about. If you are really understanding what I mean when you have somebody that you just connect with and you know that they are there to support you no matter what, it goes beyond what any sort of human instinct might think. It challenges what you might even believe that is really important about what life is. Because sometimes we just need people that are there no matter what, to cry on with their shoulder, to just listen to just hold your hand and just say that it's okay. Things are going to get better. And even when people are so mean and downright nasty, you can talk to them and they won't hold a grudge or they won't befuddle you with all kinds of other comments that might otherwise be considered inappropriate in some other circles. To be truthful, Melody knows things about my life that even for myself, I didn't realize that I knew I had a problem with. And she identified with it many years ago. That is the kind of relationship that we have. That is the reason why I keep coming back, knowing that Melody's going to point those things out to me. And if you don't have somebody in your life today that is not willing to do that for you, and you think that they are supposed to be doing that, and you still hang around them, it's time to rethink your position, ladies and gentlemen, as to whether that friendship is really important. Because value matters. Quality matters. It isn't about quantity. It isn't about your followers. It isn't about what you think are really the most important things in life. Because the most important things boil down to who will be there when all things go to hell and mass chaos ensues. Melody and John, both together, came to save my life over 4 years ago. I don't know if you ever had somebody in your life that would go to great lengths, especially if you were down in the dumps, homeless, maybe even having other sort of situations play out, medical, physical, whatever they might be. But if you don't have a friend, like I just interviewed today on my show, you need to rethink your position today. Because let's be real. If it wasn't for people like her, I would not be who I am. So I want to take one more time, the last few minutes, to talk to my best friend Melody. And for my listeners that are listening to this, I want you to hear what I have to say to her, because I think that it serves as an important guidepost for us to explore, even if in a coaching environment, why it's important to say these things that are on our hearts and minds. Melody, this part of the episode is for you. I know that down the road you will be listening to this, and you will be such a changed woman in ways in which not only are you raising 3 healthy kids, not only will you have somebody in your life that you will be able to love and respect, but I want you to know that you and your family have helped me and have changed me, and that you've made me whole as a human being, as a male figure for somebody else that I know I will meet in my life, that I will be able to enjoy the pleasure of helping them see the best versions of who they are. If it wasn't for you, I would not be the winner of so many different parts of my life now. I would not be overcoming some of the obstacles that I have let stand in my way for so long. But more importantly, that you had a voice and a part of my life that I needed to have. And I love how far you've come. You have helped me where other people would have never been able to help. You have created value where you might have never even realized that value needed to be created. But more importantly, above all else, you are the epitome of what it means to have a friend that will stand by you through thick and thin, whether you absolutely hated me or not. I want you to know that I love you, best friend, and that you matter the most. You are becoming the best version of yourself, and I love what you are becoming. Never give up. Never feel that you are worthless. But more importantly, don't ever lose that God-given opportunity that you've been given. Because you are becoming not just the best version of yourself, but the best version for others to help you see the light that is so ahead of you in many different ways. I want to thank all those that have been part of this amazing set of episodes this month, and I especially want to thank you, the listeners, for allowing me to share this with you. I hope that these 5 guests overall have been able to help you see not only that anybody can help you become better for who you are, but for what you are able to create in your own life for the future. Thanks for listening to episode number 127 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.